From this passage of the Sharaf Nama, written in 1597 by Sharaf al-Din Bitlisi. Bitlisi writes here about the average Kurdish person 400 years ago. He says the commoners among them go to great lengths to be respectful of their parents, generous and hospitable to their guests, and loyal, self-sacrificing, and grateful to their benefactors. Commoners means kasani asai. Go to great lengths means zorbajidi hawlayan. Respectful of parents means rezgirtin labaukudaik. Generous and hospitable means dilfrawanu miwandosta. Loyal and grateful to benefactors means bawafa uspasguzara bo rabarakan. And self-sacrificing means back then they also said bakurbanatbam. Learn English from this passage of
the initial label for a way of life soon evolved into a broader shared identity. By the 10th century, Arabic scholars such as al-Mas'udi recognized the Kurds as a distinct linguistic group separate from the Persians. By the 11th century, the term was increasingly used as an ethnonym, moving beyond its original connotation of nomadism. The reasons for this shift remain unclear, but it may be linked to significant social and political changes in the region at a time marked by the rise and fall of various dynasties. Increased interactions among various groups, including Arabic scholars and local rulers, likely fostered a growing awareness of the linguistic and cultural distinctions among the Kurdish population. As scholars began to acknowledge the Kurds as a distinct group, this recognition marked a crucial step towards a more defined ethnic identity. This newly solidified collective consciousness would later transpire in historical events. Despite lacking a formal state, the Kurds played a significant role in Middle Eastern history during the Middle Ages, particularly between the 9th and 12th centuries, a period known as the Iranian Renaissance or Iranian Intermezzo, an era that witnessed the rise of native Iranian Muslim dynasties following the 7th century Arab conquest and the fall of the Sasanian Empire. As the Abbasid Caliphate weakened due to political fragmentation, economic decline, and external pressures, local leaders and dynasties, including many of Kurdish descent, began to emerge. One prominent example is the Hassanwahid dynasty in the mid-10th century. However, they were all short-lived, eventually being absorbed by bigger powers. But the most prominent Kurdish figure that emerged at the time is undoubtedly Saladin. Known for reclaiming Jerusalem from the Crusaders, he founded the Ayyubid dynasty in 1171, which would end up controlling Egypt, the Levant, Hejaz, Yemen, and parts of Anatolia and Iraq until the mid-13th century. Under the Ayyubids, several languages appear to have been spoken. Arabic was the prominent language, while the ruling class often spoke Northern Kurdish, reflecting the heritage. Persian also played a role in literature and court contacts, with Turkish used in military settings, showcasing the dynasty's multicultural nature. However, after these centuries of glory, the Kurds would witness the rise of two colossal empires whose centuries-long conflict would shape the destiny of the Kurdish people into the modern era. Although various Kurdish emirates appeared over the centuries, they were frequently absorbed or crushed by dominant rulers due to shifting geopolitical landscapes. This pattern was further worsened by the rise of the Ottoman and Safavid empires in the 14th and 16th century. Many conflicts arose between the two giants, most ending up with the Ottoman Empire's territorial expansion. Kurdish regions were thus increasingly integrated into the empire, particularly after the Battle of Chaldiran in 1514, when the Ottomans defeated the Persians, annexing eastern Anatolia and parts of Upper Mesopotamia. The Ottomans implemented systems to govern these newly acquired Kurdish territories, which gradually reduced the autonomy of tribal leaders. It is around that period that the famous Kurdish poet Ahmed Khani composed the renowned epic Mem and Zin, which narrates the tale of an impossible love between two young Kurds from opposing tribes. Beneath the storyline, the poet advocates for the independence of Kurdistan. This poem is considered the national epic of the Kurds and one of the foundational works of Kurdish literature. The Treaty of Zuhab, signed between the two empires in 1639, further fragmented Kurdish territories. It effectively recognized Ottoman control over modern-day Iraq and Safavid control over Persia's western territories, splitting Kurdish communities across two distinct political and cultural spheres. This division laid the foundation for the fragmented geopolitical landscape that Kurdish populations continue to experience today. After the collapse of the Safavid Empire in 1736, other dynasties took over, including the Zend dynasty, which is sometimes regarded as originally Kurdish. All in all, throughout these centuries, Kurdish communities continued to resist the centralization imposed by both the Persians and Ottomans. However, it is essential to contextualize the geopolitical configurations of the time and the often idealized unity among the Kurds themselves. The conflict depicted in Mem and Zin was not unfounded, as there were numerous rivalries among the different Kurdish tribes, which frequently led to open conflict. For political gains, some tribal leaders willingly accepted Ottoman sovereignty over the territories. For instance, the Baban sealed alliances with the Ottomans and actively participated in the conflict against the Persians. Nevertheless, none of these alliances or configurations were permanent. The centuries leading up to the end of the First World War were characterized by shifting alliances and reversals between the Kurds on one side and the Persians and Ottomans on the other. But the fall of the Ottoman Empire was about to radically reshuffle the cards.
Ahmad Khani, Ahmad I Khani, Kurdish, Emid Zani, born in 1650 Hakkari and died in 1707 Dagubiazet, was a Kurdish writer, poet, astronomer and philosopher. He was born amongst the Khanis tribe in Hakkari province in present-day Turkey. He moved to Bayezid in Rikan province and settled there. Later he started with teaching Kurdish Kurmanji at basic level. Khani was fluent in Kurdish, Arabic and Persian. He wrote his Arabic-Kurdish dictionary, Nubahara Bikyukan, The Spring of Children, in 1683 to help children with their learning process. His most important work is the Kurdish classic love story, Mem and Zin, Mem-u Zin, 1692. His other work include a book called Iqidaya Imani, The Path of Faith, which is part poem and part prose. The book explains the 5 pillars of Islamic faith. It was published in 2000 in Sweden. Works, books, Mem-u Zin, Mem and Zin, see for its French translation, see for its English translation, Iqidaya Imani, The Path of Faith, Iqidaya Islami, Basics of Islam, Nubahara Bikyukan, The Spring of Children, Erde Exweda Dawana Helbestan.
The Kurdish people are one of the world's largest ethnic groups without a country of their own. This has made them vulnerable to persecution, mass displacement, and ethnic cleansing. Though they practice a handful of religions, the majority are Sunni Muslims. Their ethnic origins are thought to be Indo-European and Persian, not Arab. After World War I, the Allied powers carved up the former Ottoman Empire and promised the Kurds a state. That never happened. The Kurds are displaced throughout what is called unofficial Kurdistan, an area that roughly includes parts of Turkey, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. Most live in Turkey, and in Iraq, they have a semi-autonomous government. Now, with instability raging across Syria and Iraq, the possibility of a Kurdish state, at least in Iraq, is closer than ever.
Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook.